This isn't clickbait. I'm leaving YouTube for a while, possibly forever. Hi there. I'm Linda Maxey. I've been on YouTube for somewhere around 16 months now. I've posted once a week until a short while back when I missed a week because my mother-in-law had passed away. That's not something you can plan for, and I didn't have time to get a video ready. But that experience and a question a friend of mine asked me around the same time got me thinking seriously about making these videos. I'll get into more specifics in this video, but the big picture is this. I've come to see that making these videos is really not the best use of my time. In this video, I'll explain the reasons why I'll be taking an indefinite break from making YouTube videos, and stay to the end if you want my recommendations for other YouTube channels to watch. So there are three main reasons that I'm leaving YouTube, at least for now. I'll go from the least important to the most important to me. Number 3, it no longer fits my marketing goals. When I first began this channel, I was honest about my motivation. I thought the channel might help me sell my nonfiction books, Library Lens Curated Collection of Superlative Nonfiction, and Library Lens Biographies, Autobiographies, and Memoirs. If you're interested, you can find out more about those two books in videos below. So when I started this channel, my plan was to continue writing books that recommended nonfiction books on specific topics. I had a whole big series planned. I was going to do business books, and nature writing and history, you name it. I wanted to explore them all and find the best books on each subject and publish books to give other people a guide to finding the best books on those topics. So why did I change focus? Well, for one thing, books like that are expensive to produce. And while there is a market for them, it's not a large market. To self-publish and make those books really well done is expensive. They require specialized formatting and editing, and for me to reach the market on them is too expensive too. I now think I would have been better off to have found a publisher to work with for those books, because especially a reference publisher would have made it easier to help the books find their way into bookstores and libraries. And that would have been my best bet for those particular books. I wouldn't have made more money on them had I traditionally published, but they probably would have been seen and used to a greater extent. But that's water under the bridge. Live and learn, right? But then after I published the second one, like a bolt from heaven, the idea to write a novel came my way, and I felt compelled to write it. Now, this novel is not only a change from nonfiction to fiction, it jumps straight into the paranormal genres. So my original plan of talking about nonfiction books on this channel no longer fits what I'm creating or thinking about, which brings me to reason number 2 for taking a break from YouTube. Number 2, I no longer have a clear vision for this channel. This channel started as a BookTube channel, so I could talk about my nonfiction books and the books that they recommend. I love reading nonfiction, and that will never change. My idea for this channel was to talk about the nonfiction reading and nonfiction books that I never felt like got enough attention. And since I've researched these titles, I sort of figured I'd just review nonfiction books I'd read, or that I was reading, or that I had collected. And I included poetry and classic literature in that category because those are shelled with nonfiction in the Dewey Decimal Classification System. But I later expanded the channel to cover any bookish topic that interested me. Because of that, I ventured into children's books too, because I love children's books. I started exploring all sorts of bookish topics, and I had fun doing that. But as my focus changed from reading about and reporting on nonfiction books to writing fiction, I no longer have the bandwidth to focus on those topics. If you've watched me for a while, you know that I've started making the occasional videos about my journals and the writing process. Videos about writing don't really belong on a BookTube channel. They belong on AuthorTube. And I enjoy watching AuthorTube. If you're a BookTuber, you may not know a lot about AuthorTube, but you can guess that it's channels that focus on people who write books and how they create content for other people. And of course, their videos focus on helping other writers write better or write more effectively. And while I've experimented a little with AuthorTube content, I have no interest in making AuthorTube videos a primary focus. For one thing, I don't know enough about being a writer to make content than anyone else might find helpful. And on top of that, there are already plenty of good AuthorTube channels out there. I simply have no interest in talking about this or adding to what's already there. So for the past 3 months, I've been struggling to find topics that I'm excited to make videos on. At this point, I have little to say that feels interesting enough to spend the time a video requires to talk about it. I could talk about the books I'm reading, but I have so little reading time, I couldn't possibly make a video once a week to talk about what I'm reading. I'm not reading that many books, to be honest. Which brings me to the number one reason I'm taking a break from YouTube. Number one, it takes up too much writing time. At the beginning of this video, I talked about missing my first week since I began my channel 16 months ago because my mother-in-law passed away. Until I took that week off, I had been unaware of the stress that creating these videos was making for me. Not all the time. Most of the time, I've genuinely enjoyed it. But when we went on vacations or during the holidays, I felt like I had to keep making videos no matter what else was going on. And it just hit me all at once that the pressure to make a video every week was getting to be too much. I also mentioned above that a friend had asked me a question that made me rethink the time that I'm spending on these videos. Here is her question. How much time every day do you spend writing your book? It was a good question. And I found myself surprised at my answer. About an hour. About an hour a day I spend writing on my book. Okay, now if you have kids at home or if you work a full-time job, an hour a day is an accomplishment to be proud of. But I'm retired and I don't have kids at home and I'm trying to write books for a living. So how is it I only have an hour a day to write? And the answer was clear. I spend 5 to 8 hours a week on my videos. And that's really sort of insane. If I were trying to turn my channel into a money-making venture, or if I had information that I passionately felt I needed to get across to people, it would be completely worth it. But I've never expected to make much, if any, money from this channel. And while I'm passionate about books and reading, and that will never change, as I've mentioned, I don't have a lot of time to read anymore either. So to wrap this up, it hit me that my time would be better spent writing and reading than making videos. So that, my friends, is why I'm taking an extended break from making YouTube videos. I'm not saying I'll never pick this channel up again. I may. Things may change and I've had fun doing it. But at this point, YouTube is more of an expensive hobby in terms of time that I can no longer afford. So do I regret leaving? Absolutely. I have enjoyed interacting with those of you who comment, and I really do appreciate you watching my videos. And I did get a certain amount of satisfaction from sharing things like my personal reference book collection. I mean, most people don't care about that, and it gave me a chance to talk about it. But to be honest, my biggest regret is not finishing up the How to Read a Book series that I started. I've done 11 or 12 videos on that book, and I'm only a little over halfway through with it. I plan to come back to the channel occasionally with short-form videos. If I ever come back with long-form videos, I'll probably finish that series. If you'd like to see me finish it one day, let me know below. It could be that I'm only entertaining myself with those. BookTube watchers love to know what people are reading now, so I'll share the 2 books that I am reading. Get a load of this. The first book I'm reading is They Called Us White Chinese, The Story of a Lifetime of Service to God and Mankind by Robert M. Thorpe. This book is a chunk. It's almost 1,000 pages. It's a beautiful book, but as you can see, every page has 2 complete columns. There are also a lot of illustrations. It is an absolutely gorgeous book. It's going to take me a long time to read it. Someone who has been a good support to me and is, well, we call each other cousins-in-law. He's my husband's cousin. Sent me this book to read because he knew the author. Robert M. Thorpe was an educator. He taught the American military Chinese and Mandarin Chinese. My cousin-in-law was one of his students, and he really loved this book. He really loved the man. Robert M. Thorpe has passed away. I think he was born in 1913, so I think it's a pretty good bet that he's no longer with us. But my cousin-in-law wanted to share the book with me, and he was hoping I would write a book review for it, so I will do that. So that's the nonfiction book I'm reading right now. And the fiction book I'm reading right now is Bark Skins by Annie Perot, which is about Quebec and Maine and and the timber industry and how it got started when the colonists arrived in the U.S. and how it affected the Mi'kmaq tribe who lived there. So it's a fascinating book. She is a fantastic writer. If you're not familiar with her, she also wrote the Shipping News, and I'm about halfway through this book. It was recommended to me because someone said it had something to do with fairy lore, and I've gotten about halfway through, and I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about yet, but I hope it'll become plain. But regardless, I'm still enjoying the book. So that's my reading for right now. Now on to the channels that I would recommend to people who like my channel. I'm not going to talk about these in detail, but all of them are linked below. And I watch some of them more than others, but I watch all of them sometimes, and I think they're all good. All right, first off is one on learning, and this channel is Odysseas. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And here's what he says about his channel. Journey to polymath, reading skills, book insights, learning techniques, whatever interesting shows up. Endless learning, build the mind, body, and soul for a meaningful life. His videos are well done, and he has some excellent advice. Now, on AuthorTube, I've started watching The Cozy Creative, Lydia Foxglove. She's only been on YouTube for a few months, but she has such a genuine and refreshing take on being an author and creativity. I enjoy her videos immensely, and I highly recommend you check her out if you're interested in the same things. Helen Redfern. She says she has stories from my writing desk as I document my writing journey, notebooks, monthly planning and resets, nonfiction book club, cozy office aesthetic, writing about confidence, creativity, and productivity. And she is cozy. And she has great productivity ideas that I've used, and I find her inspiring. Okay, as for a Bookish channel, there is Book and Paper Arts. She says she has altered books, journal arts, and vintage books, paper, and other ephemera. My works are created with original vintage paper. Collecting it takes me around the world where I scour flea markets, antiquarian book alleys, dark shops on unlikely corners, and plain old junk stalls looking for old books, maps, handwritten postcards and letters, vintage ads, tintypes and cabinet photos, and a vague assortment of intriguing paper ephemera. If I could live another life after this one, I would want to do what she does. Illustrations. I adore illustrations. I recommend Pete Beard. He says, I've always thought that many illustrators from the past got nothing like the attention they deserved, so I decided to make some videos about a few of these almost forgotten talents. The Unsung Heroes series was originally intended to be about illustrations from what's known as the golden age of illustrations. And he goes on to talk about how he started to branch out too into 20th century illustrators that he liked, and illustrations that belong on children's books, advertising, Art Deco, or historical periods. I can't recommend his channel enough. It's fantastic. And finally, a few BookTube channels. I don't watch a lot of BookTube channels on a regular basis. There are a lot of them out there. And that's not because I don't think many of them are good. A lot of them I haven't discovered, obviously. And a lot of them I have discovered are fantastic. It's just that I've only had a very limited amount of time to watch. So these are the channels that I have watched on a regular basis that I think are really outstanding. The first one is called No Edit Book Reviews. He says, welcome. Whether you're a page junkie, a student of nature, or just generally bored, here we look at those who had ideas or knowledge interesting enough to write books about. This channel is mostly interested in, but not limited to, nonfiction. What do you like to read? Okay, now I'm not sure what this fella's name is. I've been watching his book reviews off and on for a little over a year now. He doesn't usually show his face, but I find his book choices, mostly nonfiction with an emphasis on science books, always represent quality books. And I admire his reviews. They're always insightful and critical in a good way. He has only 329 subscribers, and I think he deserves more. So if you like science books, check him out. Okay, and then there's life lessons from books. Helen says, there's always a lesson in every book we read. Hi, I'm Helen. Reading is one of the best ways to learn about ourselves and empathize with others. Books give us different insights and perspectives that allow us to question why and how we have lived our own lives. Here I share my life lessons learned through books, brought from independent booksellers, secondhand stores, and borrowed from friends or libraries. Most of the time I come away with more questions than answers, and that's okay. I love community, so feel free to share your own life lessons from books here. Sorry, I don't do social media, create shorts, or use AI. It's all me here because I like a personal touch to grow the community. And also, I don't promote Amazon. Helen lives in Australia, and I love to hear her talk. Years ago, I think, Helen used to talk about nonfiction books on her channel, and she's taken those videos down now and concentrates solely on fiction she's reading. For the past few years, I've been reading very little fiction, but I still enjoy watching Helen talk about the books she reads. She reads good books, for one thing, and she always has interesting and intelligent things to say about the books she reads. Oh, and she does library tours. How cool is that? Okay, next is Bookish at a Bookish Texan. Brian says, I've loved to read for as long as I remember, and I love to talk about books with other people who love books. I hope this channel gives me the opportunity to share my love of books and engage with other readers. I have particular taste in books, but don't consider myself a book snob. Some of my favorite authors are Toni Morrison, Louise Erdrich, John Fosse, William Faulkner, Ernest Hemingway, and Elmore Leonard. Brian is a retired history, I guess you would say, social studies teacher in Texas. He's a nice guy who tells it like it is. He's a straight shooter. His videos cover all sorts of genres. He reads fiction and nonfiction, and he'll dare to weigh in on controversial topics. I find his take on things interesting and refreshing, and to be honest, even if I didn't like his videos, I'd probably watch some of them just because his thumbnails can be hilarious. All right, the next is Evening Reader. And she says, welcome, I'm Priscilla. I enjoy reading literary fiction, contemporary fiction, classics, mysteries, and a broad range of nonfiction. I'm an American expat living in Amsterdam with my husband and 2 cats. Like Brian, Priscilla is from Texas. But for the last several years, she and her husband have lived in Amsterdam. I'd watch her channel just to hear about that. But Priscilla is also funny and honest. She reads interesting books that I've never heard of. So thanks, Priscilla. If I didn't watch her channel, I'd never even know about some of the books she mentions. But what I like best about Priscilla is that, unlike me, she doesn't script anything. If she's doing a tag or a challenge, she'll read the question and just wings it. And she wings things beautifully. I like to listen to her to get a fresh perspective. And finally, there's a Reader's Almanac with Celeste Schantz. She says, hi there, I'm Celeste. I'm a freelance writer who lives behind a small dairy and wool farm, sheep, cows, and goats, in western New York State. I feature book hauls, reviews, nature writing, vintage books, golden age mysteries, classics, children's books, social history, crafts, recipes, and seasonal collectible bookish things. As you can tell from her channel introduction, Celeste reads everything. But more than that, Celeste seems to be who I always dreamed of being when I was a kid. She's like a friend I've always wanted to have. She's talented at making paper crafts, which I really admire. She has such a cozy and relaxing vibe about her. I enjoy her vlogs where she takes her camera on the road and shares her trips to museums and holiday outings and local authors' houses like Shirley Jackson's. She shares stories of meeting famous authors like Helen McDonald from H is for Hawk. Celeste is interesting and down to earth. Like me, she enjoys children's books, and she's a girl sleuth enthusiast. She introduces you to beautiful books. She likes vintage copies just like me, and she will go to the effort to order books special if she likes the way they look. For the last bit, she's been concentrating on reading books from all around the world, not just those from America and Britain. And now she's getting into reading Newbery Award winners too. And if you don't know, those are children's books that have been awarded for excellence by the American Library Association. I think she's awesome, and I can't recommend her channel enough. So that's it for me for today. Feel free to leave comments about my channel, other channels, or any other bookish topic below. I'll try to answer all the comments left within the next week or two. And until next time, whenever or wherever that may be, I wish you happy reading.